Have some great guests with us today that we're excited to hear from. But before they do that, I'm going to ask the committee, do you have any requests for bill introductions from the committee? Okay, what about from the audience? Okay, thank you. Representative Essex, come on up.
Thank you, Madam Chair and committee. Glad to be here. This is bill number RS-2814. It is an act concerning the Kansas Open Records Act relating to permissible exceptions to disclosure, providing an exception to KORA that authorizes members of the legislature to have identifying information restricted from public websites that identify their home addresses. So similar to some other bills that you might have seen. With Melissa Hortman and the stories of so many legislators here too, we're having people coming to our homes. This is just something to respond to that.
Okay, does anyone have any questions for the requester? Okay, without objection, we will go ahead and request for that to be introduced.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have any other requests for bill introductions? Okay, we do not. Well, then I'm just so pleased to welcome the folks from our judicial branch who are going to give us an overview today. First, we just want to welcome Chief Justice Eric Rosen. Thank you for coming. And I think you were in the Senate committee today. Is that true? Okay, well, you're going to like us so much better, I'm telling you. So please come on up to the podium, and we're happy to hear your overview. Thank you. Let's make sure. You see the light?
There we go. Am I
okay,
on now?
That's better. Okay, thank you.
I'll just repeat that. No, but thank you. Thank you, Chairperson Humphreys. It's really great to be here this afternoon. And I do want to thank you for the opportunity to present here this afternoon as the new Chief Justice of the Kansas Supreme Court to talk with you about the work of the branch and to provide a little additional information about several topics that we talked about yesterday in my State of the Judiciary remarks. As I mentioned yesterday, we have made meaningful progress in expanding access to justice and other key initiatives. The progress is directly tied, I want to emphasize that, it really is directly tied to the sustained investment that the legislature has provided the judicial branch. And we do so with, and talk with you, recognizing we really appreciate what you've done in the past and hope to continue into the future. But before I get into that, I just want to briefly, I'll make this brief, talk about the transition to this role and the responsibilities that I've assumed. It really has, before October 8th, which is when I assumed the acting Chief Justice role, I had no idea, when thinking back, that I would be here today at the beginning of this year talking and advocating and asking what I'm going to of today in the legislature. And it's been interesting to assume that role. It's been a challenging experience. When I really was saddened, and you can appreciate this, to see Chief Justice Lukert step down, and especially having seen the hard work she's done firsthand, the work with you all and with the judiciary during her time as Chief Justice. And I've really begun to understand and appreciate the role and the responsibilities of the Chief Justice is unique to anything I've ever done in the judicial branch. In the past, for the last 20 years, I've worked as a departmental chair and departmental justice for 5 judicial districts. I've been the head of nominating commissions. I've chaired judicial council for the last 2 years with Representative Humphreys as a member. I've had many liaison duties and serving Supreme Court committees, but this is fundamentally different, to be trusted and charged with statewide administrative responsibilities. And the demands of this and the scope of the responsibilities have been very eye-opening. And all I wanted to kind of reiterate today is that I want to build what my predecessor, Chief Justice Lukert, established. And the work is really evidenced with this body. And I look, what she really, I think, her skill was working collaboratively with people. I think I have that same skill, and that's what I intend to continue that tradition that she so remarkably established with you all. With that context, I want to provide some work that is underway in the branch. I'm joined here by two individuals today that will expand on that. First, Marisa Bayless will be filling in for Sarah Hoskinson, who is going to talk with you about our justice initiatives in our self-help centers. And I'm also joined by Dave Rabine, attorney who I think you're familiar with, from Dodge City, who's going to talk about our rural justice initiative. But first, let me kind of put this in a frame that how this is all going to come about, at least what we've been doing, and that is we have adopted a strategic plan. And that kind of started a few years ago with the assistance from the National Center of State Courts. We began to develop a strategic plan to guide the courts through our period of significant change, and that really was brought about by our statewide case management system. And building on that work, in 2025, we convened a diverse group of judicial branch employees from across the state to update our plan. We began working again with the National Center, and we had groups of people with diverse backgrounds meeting in person. We held online discussions, and ultimately we developed a new mission and vision statement that reflect both where the branch is at and where we are headed. And our mission is really straightforward. It's this: Kansas courts administer justice by applying the law to resolve disputes and protect rights. Our vision, equally pretty straightforward: to provide accessible justice with integrity, intelligence, innovation, and fairness. And from that work, we've identified four core primary priorities. The first, enhancing access to justice for court users. The second, building public trust, confidence, and understanding. Third, improving court operations and efficiencies. And fourth, fostering a strong and supported workforce. Taken together, this strategic plan provides a clear pathway for the judicial branch over the next several years and captures both our current reality and our direction moving forward. And so one of the areas that these priorities came together was at our second mental health summit that we held this summer. And I mentioned it yesterday in my State of the Judiciary address. In August 2025, multi-branch teams came together at Fort Hays State University for our second mental health summit. And some of you might have been there. We had our first summit in 2022. And like that event, the summit was organized and attended by all three branches of government and drew more than 500 participants. And those participants were such a wide, diverse people in different professions across the state. There were judges, legislators, attorney, court services and community corrections officers, representatives from the executive branch, mental and medical health professionals, law enforcement, first responders, other community leaders, just a great diverse set of people to talk about the challenges that we are experiencing. We had local and national speakers help facilitate important conversation and identify new approaches and challenges that we all share. And to ensure that this work translates into local action in our communities, we set up and encouraged chief judges to organize in delegations and coordinate what we call communities of practice. And what we did was break down communication barriers, remain a priority in collaboration, and across all branches of communities. It's essential that we develop these communities of practice as we develop work and it's replicated across the state. And I want to emphasize the legislative investment has been critical to sustaining that work. Several years ago, the legislature funded a statewide behavioral health coordinator position within the Office of Judicial Administration. That role has become central to supporting our communities of practice and advancing mental health initiatives. One thing I didn't talk about yesterday was, and I want to give you an example of some of the public education and civic engagement that the branch does. And I want to give you an example of Constitution Day this year and Constitution Week. And it was really no exception to some of the other outstanding things that we do. And an example from that day, on Constitution Day, came from Judge Robert Warnell of the 10th Judicial District in Johnson County, who hosted a mock trial for third graders for the last 3 or 4 years. This year was even expanded in a remarkable way. Judge Warnell was joined by Delaware Governor Matt Meyer, our own U.S. Senator Jerry Moran, and U.S. Supreme Court Justice Neil Gorsuch. A mock trial was streamed to more than 17,500 third graders in 14 states, helping students across the country learn firsthand about our great Constitution and judicial process. It was just a remarkable day and a remarkable event. With that in mind, I want to talk just briefly about our 2027 budget requests. I talked a lot yesterday about specialty courts, and that's one of our requests. Last year, we requested a transfer of funds to Specialty Courts Resources Fund. The legislature approved a $1.5 million transfer from the State General Fund, the first direct appropriation dedicated specifically to specialty court operations. The Specialty Court Funding Advisory Committee, which includes legislators, judges, court staff, prosecutors, and defense attorneys, reviewed statewide needs. For the fiscal year 2027, as I mentioned yesterday, we are requesting $1.5 million transfer to the fund, along with 3 regional coordinator positions. These coordinators would assist specialty courts with planning, staffing, and day-to-day operational alignment. This request reflects the significant growth of specialty courts in Kansas. In 2023, we had 23 specialty court operating statewide. By the end of 2025, just the end of the December, that number had grown to 44. And we project approximately 50 specialty courts in operation by the end of next year. Adult drug treatment courts represent the largest categories of those specialty courts, followed by assisted outpatient treatment courts, they're sometimes called AOT courts, and behavioral health treatment courts. Currently, as you know, specialty courts are supported through a patchwork of funding sources, including federal, state, and local grants, direct local appropriations, and foundation funding. Staffing is often supported through federal grants and local government hires, while judges, judicial branch employees, and community corrections staff frequently operate these courts as an additional duty to their already responsibilities and duties. The intent of the general fund transfers is to provide a more reliable source of supplemental funding. The regional coordinators would allow a dedicated staff to assist multiple courts across judicial districts, helping us stabilize operations and reduce administrative burdens on existing personnel. And lastly, I would just want to touch on one other area I didn't touch on yesterday, and that is our Kansas Judicial Learning Center. In fiscal year 2025, the legislature approved funding to begin planning the Kansas Judicial Learning Center, which is to be located on the first floor of the Kansas Judicial Center across the street. The center would provide an educational space for students and visitors to learn about the history and the role of the judiciary and its relationship to the other branches of government. Since that time, the Learning Center Committee has worked with architects and design experts to develop concepts and renderings, including plans for an interactive courtroom experience. The fiscal year 2027 budget includes funding to begin development of 2 cornerstone exhibits. This phased approach allows for us to demonstrate progress, while at the same time continuing to pursue funding through foundations and private partnerships. Before I turn it over to Marisa to talk about the virtual self-help centers, I want to thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today. I look forward to working with all of you in my new capacity as Chief Justice, and I'm ready to stand for questions at this time or any other appropriate time.
Okay, thank you, Chief Justice. I think we will see if anyone has any questions for you. Anybody on the committee, any questions? This is a great opportunity. So anyone have any questions?
I could be like, anyone?
What? Really?
Why am I surprised? He was our escort last night. He was firing away questions all the way into the chain. Anyway, yes, Representative.
Representative Carmichael.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Mr. Chief Justice, thank you for taking the time to be not only here, but in this building today. It is important that we get a chance to hear directly from the judge's mouth. I will not call you a horse, okay?
Honored to be here, Representative.
At about the time that you and I were getting sworn in, we had a new judicial center. It'd been there a few years, I think. And as you know, the first floor was principally, a whole lot of it was library space.
The whole first floor, both sides was library, and it was packed. People would come there every day. That was the state law library.
And we didn't have security screening. We didn't have security people, and the world has changed. I think that the state law library, the Supreme Court library, the public portion at least, has been scaled back dramatically, and I assume that's where the learning center is going, or?
You are correct, and I have some people here that can talk to you more about where that's going to go. But yes, and I talked with a couple of people responsible for that, for at least the design and thinking about it. Mm-hmm. And it's exciting, it really is exciting. But yes, it's in the library space that is no longer being used too much. But yes.
I never can get to the point, Madam Chair, you know that. The real point of the question, though, is I know we used to, for example, the Sedgwick County Law Library, there was funding there, and the rule was it's open to the public because there are people, for their access to justice, they need access to law books. How are we taking care of citizens that at one time would have utilized the paper Kansas reports, et cetera? How are we preserving access for justice to those?
I can defer to some of the people.
I will await.
I can just tell you generally, we used to, I mentioned when you and I were practicing law, I would go and even when I was in law school, that was a place to study.
I tried to keep anybody from seeing me in the law library.
Every table was taken and books were checked out. And with the advent of kind of online and the computer and just the advent of Lexis and Nexus becoming more of an electronic feature, it is not occupied at all. So there's been a total transition. And I would think the general public is experiencing the same thing. They get their information online. They don't come and get books. Libraries are experiencing the same thing. But I can speak to our law library. I don't have the statistics, but generally, it is not a place that's visited to get information anymore. It's not.
And I have to admit, I haven't set foot in a law library in probably 20 years.
That's the phenomenon.
Thank you.
Representative.
A lot of dedicated space initially.
Yep. Representative Schreiber also has a question.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Chief Justice. I have a couple of friends that are senior status judges, and maybe this might be something with Mr. Rabine, but is their use of those becoming more because of the lack of attorneys that can move up to be judges and so forth in Western Kansas especially?
I don't know the correlation between the use of senior judges and the lack of attorneys might have a correlation, but I think more our use of senior judges just has to do with handling cases where there's conflicts in some of our rural districts and no one can cover those. And it also has to do with just the volume of cases in certain districts. We just don't have enough judges. And instead, it kind of eases that burden before we ask for appropriation for new judges that we use senior judges. Yeah.
Okay, are there any other questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much for being with us.
And Ms. Bayless.
Okay, Marissa Bayless, Special Counsel to Chief Justice, welcome to our committee.
Thank you so much for having me. And I do have a PowerPoint.
Okay, great. Tell me you got that going. Okay, thank you.
So one initiative that Chief Justice Rosen spoke about yesterday at a State of the Judiciary, and one thing we wanted to show you was our virtual online self-help center. So talking about access, again, online self-help center, we started that in 2025. The self-help.ks.gov is that website. Really as not intended to be a substitute for legal representation, but a place where individuals could go online and access court information and complement our physical self-help centers that we'll talk about in a bit. So there are forms and tools, there's resources to try to find legal assistance, our self-help center directory, some court basics, a hearing search, and filing portals. So we'll talk a little bit about those aspects. So the first page right there is what is on the initial landing page of the self-help center, so what a user would see. There's a quick links section and a topic section. Each of these sections were built with intention. We worked with our district court clerks specifically to ask them what is the most common things people are asking for when they come to the courthouse, or if they're coming to a physical self-help center that a courthouse has. So a lot of that is trying to find where their hearing is, finding legal assistance, of course, potential legal research. And then topic-wise, a lot of this deals in family law, child in need of care cases, and criminal traffic expungement. So a lot of things that people do without attorneys usually are trying to find some information to help them feel more prepared when they come to court. And so this is also a map and something that a directory for our physical self-help centers that we have right now in our district courts. So this was a project that we started a few years ago with some chief judges who are really interested in kind of using some space. Sometimes actually the local law library, the space that they had, they wanted to repurpose it a little bit to be a little bit more open, maybe not as intimidating with all the law books, but something that's usable for people. So computers, access to printers, things like that, so that users can come in and use the resources that we have. So a lot of them have access to Westlaw or LexisNexis research availability to them. And then we've built this out quite a lot in this past year. So in 2025, we opened up 21 new self-help centers in 20 counties. And then we also have a partnership right now going with some public libraries. So the Topeka-Shawnee County Public Library just opened up their self-help center, legal self-help center within the public library. Arc City and Winfield are underway right now too. So we kind of want to explore that other option of reaching people at the library space. And so if you click on a self-help center in your county that you're looking for, it would provide information on where the self-help center is at, access, phone numbers, hours, whether or not it's staffed. Some of our larger self-help centers do have dedicated staff for that self-help center. Legal aid days are really important, so we partner a lot with Kansas Legal Services and other attorneys who are local, who are willing to do pro bono work to come in and staff a few days either out of the month or the week, depending on their availability. And that's really important as well. And then resources, if we have computers and printers available for free and things like that, that a person can know before going to that physical center. One of the most common visited webs or pages on the self-help center is finding a hearing. So for those hearings that are public hearings, a person could go on here and search either by their name or the judge if they know the judge, or their case number or something like that, and be able to find where their hearing is going to be at, the time, the courtroom, things like that. Sometimes that information is not always presented to them, or they forget to write it down or something like that, and they feel panicked and don't know what to do. This is connected to our case management system, so it updates continuously. So if there's changes or a hearing got moved or something, it would be reflected on the hearing schedule. So this is definitely one of our most commonly accessed pages on the Self-Help Center. And then what we're trying to do and continuously trying to build this out, we built this website with internal resources and with staff that we had. So we're able to modify it as necessary. But one thing we've really tried to do is provide some content on really important areas where people are generally unrepresented by legal counsel. So evictions, a lot of times people do not have an attorney for eviction proceeding. They're very much unaware of how eviction trial works or the timeline and things like that. So we have resources on here to try to help people feel prepared. So there are videos about what the trial is going to be like, what to expect at this hearing, things like that. Similarly, we did the same thing for protection orders. Again, kind of a very intimidating process for a person, but trying to expect what a judge is going to ask you at a protection order hearing, what you should expect the things that to happen afterwards potentially. And also linking to the protection order portal that you can file a protection order online. But our most frequently visited are hearings, requesting court records, child support, protection orders, and marriage license. And so marriage license are also able to be filled online now, and mostly that's how people are filling those out, is through that, via that portal. And that was just a quick overview. I was pretty fast, but we do have cards to give you as well. We printed a lot of these, so we have more if you want more. But they're physically in our district courts. The clerks have them at the counters and stuff, but also if you would like to have them for your constituents that visit in your offices and things like that. I know a lot of times when I get questions by the legislature, it's trying to find resources for their constituents and things like that. So want to try to be responsive to that, so I can give
Yeah,
those.
you have those now, so could we pass those out?
Yeah.
Yep. Thank you.
That was all I had, but happy to answer questions.
Okay, I have just a couple questions.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, this is all the district courts, every appellate, everything in Kansas. I mean, so when it says finding a hearing, you can click on your county or judicial
So it'll
district
be
or,
for district court hearings that
Only-
are
okay.
public, yes. So a lot of
Okay.
the sync proceedings would not be on there, or anything that was a sealed case or something like that. We separately have schedules on the regular judicial branch website for the appellate dockets.
yeah, and then, so like if if someone wants to file a protection order, which you said you could do online,
Mhm.
is there a fee for that and they pay online, or how does that work?
I can't remember actually if there is a fee. They can do it online. We've had that portal up now for several years, and it's definitely one of the most accessed ways now that people do file protection orders, but I can check and get back to you on that.
Okay, yeah, that's super interesting. I think this is a great resource. Yeah, okay, committee, what other questions would you have for Ms. Bayless? Representative Barrett.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for your presentation today. I think that self-help centers and libraries is an amazing idea. For the libraries, what kind of investment do they have to put forth? Like, do they have to just dedicate a computer and print off some materials? Do you guys provide materials?
So I know that there was some grant funding that was a collaboration between Fort Hays State, Kansas Legal Services, and the Kansas Library Association. So I can get more information maybe on the funding streams, but a lot of it is just kind of dedicating, a space that's maybe not so public, but is a little off to the side, right? A lot of times it is just allowing them printer access and computer and internet access, but especially having a Westlaw, access to, that's incredibly important for those individuals.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
So that Westlaw subscription, that's,
Sometimes that can be through the library, we'll be able to do that, but I can get back on the grant funding that was partnered with that.
that would be interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, other questions for Ms. Bayless? Representative Vaughn.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I also was interested in the library self-help centers. I know at the in-person self-help centers, there are staff also who can often help with questions and filing protection orders and things like that. As part of the partnership, are you helping train librarians to offer those services too, or?
So there is some training that goes with that, and a lot of it is kind of getting the librarians, really comfortable with the virtual self-help center too, to recognize some of those common things that people are asking for. So again, not requiring them to provide legal advice or anything like that, but being comfortable enough to recognize some of the things that people are asking for so that they can be helpful in that area.
That's a cool model. I think that would be a great thing to expand across the state in areas that don't have the self-help centers. So that's cool. Thank you.
Representative Carmichael.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This has been an excellent presentation because I've learned a lot and piqued my interest, and so therefore I can display my ignorance because I thought I'd try this out, And so I see, gosh, we can get access to Westlaw, it looks like. Those of the legislature, we don't get access to Westlaw. But if I go across the street to the Judicial Center, can I sit down there and I see an affirmative nod, and the same thing with LexisNexis?
I don't know.
Not that.
Our contract's with Westlaw.
But I can get use of, wow. I've just found a new excuse not to be in the office, Madam Chair. Thank you.
A visit over there, and you said you hadn't been there for a while, so, yeah. Okay, so one question.
Yeah.
When you have like this Harvey County example, you
Mhm.
have third Wednesday of each month, somebody's there. Are those volunteer attorneys from Kansas Legal Services or just others who volunteer? Who's that staffed by?
A lot of times it's KLS, so we have a work with them to try and see if they have attorneys available to staff based on their availability. Chief judges are really crucial in starting the self-help center, so a lot of times they'll also try to work with the local attorneys who are willing to do that type of work. And even if it is only for 1 day or 2 days a month, trying to provide something, yeah, that is
Yeah,
available.
that's great. That's exciting.
Mhm.
Okay, any other questions from anybody? Okay, thank you so much. That was super fascinating. We appreciate it. Good information. Okay, next we have Attorney Dave Rabine, who is with the Rural Justice Initiative. Welcome to our committee.
Good afternoon, Chairman Humphreys and committee. I'm pleased to be here. I'm David Rabine. I'm an attorney in Dodge City. I've been involved with the Rural Justice Committee and an initiative from the beginning, as well as at least 100 other attorneys have been involved with it. But I want to report to you a little bit about the situation. First of all, I'd like to start again reiterating what the chief said. Thank you so much for the support that you've given to the judicial branch. We have a very good court system in the state of Kansas. This is something that we need to appreciate and that we need to support. The people of the state of Kansas deserve a good court system, and thanks to your help, they've got one. Now we need to talk about taking care of it. I want to talk about the shortage of attorneys in the rural areas from a little different perspective. Yes, there's a crisis. Yes, there's a problem with access to justice in terms of criminal representation, that kind of thing. But I want to address it a little more from an economic development standpoint. I've been in Dodge City my whole life. I've made it a total of 13 miles in my life. I grew up 13 miles north of Dodge City. Now I live in Dodge City. I have a pretty simple philosophy. I believe that what's good for Dodge City is good for the state of Kansas, and I believe what's good for the state of Kansas is good for the country, and I think what's good for the country is good for the world. And I'm here to tell you that Dodge City is doing pretty well. Probably our most recent development is we got the Hilmar cheese factory, something we've been looking for and working for 20 or 30 years at least. We would not have been able to come close to getting that without the help that the legislature gave us. And it was all hands on deck. The legislature, the governor's office, commerce, people in town. Again, the culmination of a lot of work. When we got down to the end of that discussion before Hilmar made its decision, the question they asked is, where are our workers going to come from? And they emphasized to us, we're not talking about manual labor. We're talking about trained, sophisticated IT engineer, those kind of services. And that question really is the question in terms of rural Kansas. Where are the teachers coming from? Where are the nurses coming from? Where are the accountants coming from? The doctors, the pharmacists. This is the backbone of a good, healthy town. What I'm telling you is true in Dodge City, but it could be just as true in Pittsburgh or Hayes or Goodland or the other parts of the state as well. I can't help you with recruiting a nutritionist for a feed yard, but I can tell you a little bit about recruiting lawyers. And you might ask, okay, more lawyers, is that really something that we need? And I would say absolutely, without question, that is something that we need. And when you recruit an attorney, and this is true of the other professions as well, you tend to not get just one. You tend to get their partner, and their partner becomes involved in the community, and the attorney becomes involved in the community, and the community gets better. I want to give you one example. My longtime partner, Shane Bangeter, Some of you probably know him. He came to Dodge City in 1990. He was from Leota, Kansas. His wife, Kirsten, was a bank clerk at the time. He came, he took a job in the firm that I was in, and Kirsten went back to school, and she got her education degree. She became a master teacher. She's in the Kansas Teachers Hall of Fame. Can you imagine the hundreds and probably thousands of students that she's touched throughout her career? Shane was active and is active in the community as well, first on the Dodge City Community College Board, but then 2 terms on the Board of Regents. So this family that came to Dodge City was blessed with 2 children. One is Austin, his son, who's a fighter pilot in the Air Force. Although he'll tell you the most fun he had last year was when his squadron flew over the Indianapolis 500. But that was nothing compared to the show that we got in a low approach over the airport at Dodge City on their way home to Las Vegas. So Austin is an example of what we do well in Kansas, which is we raise kids that go on to do other things. But we also need to raise kids that stay. Their second child, Paige Bangeter, has been an attorney now for 5 years, and in 5 short years, she's returned to Dodge City. She's now city attorney of Dodge City, one of the most progressive, I would say, cities in the state, and her mentor came out of this body, Brad Ralph, who was representative at the time and getting ready to retire. He said, this is the one that we want. So she's come back. Her husband is a professional commercial pilot. Just imagine what they're going to be able to do, what they're going to be able to do to help our community go forward. So this is important. I think everyone here is invested in the idea that we want to have communities in the rural area that are vibrant. Out in my area, and Representative Lewis can attest to this, I mean, agriculture is everything. You can talk about all the other stuff that we do, but agriculture is number one. And it's an extremely sophisticated technological industry. One of the things that we looked at when we were talking about recruiting attorneys is the recruitment of veterinarians, and the program that they have at K-State has been unbelievably successful. Without disparaging anybody, if you can get a veterinarian to go to Elkhart, we ought to be able to get an attorney to go to Dodge City. What we found as we talked to K-State and got out and talked to people that had actually gone through these programs, what we found was you need to attract people with an entrepreneurial frame of mind. These were people that were interested in starting their own businesses, and they're out there. But you've got to get with them early, maybe even in high school, to tell them, hey, this is something that you could do and could do well. Representative Carmichael, you talked a little bit about technology, and I would just echo what you said. I am not interested in nostalgia. I'm not thinking we can go back to the way that it was in the 1990s or anything like that. I think we're going to, in order to tackle this problem, I think we're going to have to use everything that we have. We're going to have to use technology. We're going to have to get modern. We're going to have to do more with less. But I do believe that the people of Kansas are entitled to have local government. We have 3 really good judges in my judicial district, which is 6 counties surrounding Dodge City. We have one that's from Fowler, one that's from Meade, one that's from Montezuma, okay? They are really good, not only because they're smart, but because they know the community. I think you're entitled to that. But in order to get a good judge locally, that's a 20-year project. You've got to bring them in, identify them, bring them along, get them some experience, and then they become a judge. This is a very worthwhile project. We need to do a better job of recruitment and retention. We don't do a good enough job of telling our story out in rural Kansas. The unbelievably successful story that we have with the industries that we have across our state and all portions of our state, to be able to sit down with somebody and go, this is real. This is something you could do and it would be good for you. Now, when you're talking to attorneys, and one of the reasons that we're here asking for your help in this recruitment and education program is it's just a fact that starting salaries in the rural areas are less than starting salaries, say, in Wichita or Douglas County or Wyandotte County. Now, I would argue that the opportunities may be equal to or better than, in some instances, in our larger communities. But when you're a law student and you've got loans to pay and maybe a child, and you're looking for a job, and you've got one that's $20,000 or $30,000 higher than the other, it's not a very fair fight. But if you can give us a little bit of help, and I know that money's tight, and I know everybody's got good projects, but I think if you can give us a little bit of help, we can do better. Now, we need to do better. What we've done in the past is everybody's recruited on their own. The county attorneys have recruited, our firms recruited, other firms have recruited. We're trying to do it our own. We don't do it very well. What we tend to say is come out, we'll see how it goes, and I think you'll like it. That's not good enough. You're going to have a contract. You're going to have benefits. We're going to have to get organized. And that's on us. And that's something that we've learned, in this 2-year project that we've been involved with the courts, is the rural attorneys have to come together. We're working on that. That's a difficult project. It's not unlike organizing the Kansas House of Representatives. It doesn't happen automatically, but we're coming together with the idea, let's get a little more professional about how we recruit. Let's offer something solid. Let's get out there and figure out where the jobs are, and promote those jobs and talk to people that would be interested in it. Now, we're going to recruit law school graduates. That's a given. We have 2 great law schools in the state, and they are solidly behind this project. Washburn in particular is one of the leaders in the country on rural legal education. We think and know that people that are familiar with the area or someplace like it, so maybe from Oklahoma, from Nebraska, but going to school in Kansas, they're like, hey, this is a lot like home. This is not unfamiliar to me. Or maybe they have a desire, as I did. I want to go back. I want to go back to home if you can give me a good reason to. So we're going to be doing that. But the second thing that we haven't been doing really at all, and is really interesting in Dodge City, is recruiting within the schools. Now, Dodge City, you're probably aware, is about 60% Hispanic. Same, Representative Blue, same thing in Garden, same thing in Liberal, and I'm sure across the state. I mean, it's just the Hispanic community is a growing part of the population. That is really not on their radar screen yet. The idea of not only college, but going beyond college. But having, Judge Pickering, our first Hispanic member of the Court of Appeals came out to Dodge City, Garden City, and Liberal, met with students. They were so excited to have someone that they could identify with. We need to get out there and identify these promising students, and then let them know that, your bilingual abilities, these are things that are worth a lot. Now, let me put a slightly different spin on that. The Dodge City Area Chamber of Commerce that I've been a member of since I came back tells me we have somewhere between 200 and 300 Hispanic-owned businesses in Dodge City. Many of them are almost entirely family-run. It's a family all pitching in together to run a restaurant or have a repair shop or sell cars or whatever. But some of them are quite big and sophisticated. They need legal help. They need tax advice. They need estate planning. They need all of that. I also think that given the opportunity that we can entice lawyers that are from our area, but have been trained and working in larger cities. They're ready to come back. One of them put to me, hey, I turned to my wife and said, other people are raising our kids. What are we doing? Our parents are at home. We can go back. But she said, what am I going to do? You know, but we've got to get better at recruiting. And we want to identify and partner with our urban champions. This is one of the things that has surprised me in this project. We have many, many people from the rural areas that are working in Kansas City, Wichita, Douglas County, that are with us, that want us to succeed. Not going to be them moving back, but they're supportive of us, and they also see the opportunity. Hey, we can provide some service to you guys. We can do some things together. We can do some sophisticated things together. So it's kind of a holistic approach. I am very optimistic about this, thankful for the opportunity to visit with you about it, and happy to answer any questions that you have.
Hey, thank you so much. That was interesting. What questions do we have? Representative Carmichael, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The prospect of asking Mr. Rabine questions in a public setting is one that cannot be let go. You and I graduated, you're a KU lawyer, as I recall?
Yes.
Yeah, we graduated about the same time, Justice Rosen, maybe a year or two, somewhere in the same range. When I was admitted,
You and I were far down the class rank. We weren't up there with Rosen.
I started out seventh in my class, and I couldn't even make it to order the coif by the time I was done. So there's the answer, if you know. But when I started in 79, I guess it was 80, whenever it was 80, I guess. There were 190 something lawyers in my class, and I think, or students, law students, and I think the same was roughly true at Washburn. I think there have been times when those institutions have perhaps only graduated 140, 160. And I know the deans tell us that we recognize the problem. Is that part of it? Are we not graduating enough lawyers in Kansas? Irrespective of where they come to Wichita or go to Dodge City, you got to have new blood in the profession. Can you help me understand where, from your perspective, we are on that?
Surprisingly, you made a good point.
You understand, Madam Chair, I want you to understand why he's one of the finest trial lawyers in western Kansas, and he poaches business in my county, and I poach business in his, and he's always welcome, and he's a friend.
Representative Carmichael, you bring up a really important point. I think when you and I were in law school there, the number 220 is running in my mind. That was on the first day of law school. That's what we had at KU Law School. It was something similar at Washburn, maybe not quite as much. I think it got down even lower, if I remember right. I think that after 2008, it was down to like 110, 105, 100, something like that in each of the schools. And it was done by necessity. You know, they were unable to place attorneys. We ran into a crisis there briefly where they changed the test and couldn't pass the bar exam, and it was tough. Okay, so now we have the shortage of attorneys, and we're no longer producing the number of attorneys that we have. Now, I'm happy to report. I think you were telling me, Laurel, is it 135 at work? What is it at KU? Do you know? Around 135 and 124, if you didn't hear that. So it's up fairly substantially, but not nearly enough. Now, when you ask them why that is, what they talk about is school rankings. They're like, we've worked so hard to climb up the ladder, and both law schools are very, very well respected in the country. And they're like, we do not want to give that up by bringing in more people and maybe lowering our overall score. I would suggest maybe there's some other things we ought to think about, you know, in addition to that. So I'm not sure that is the end answer to that. But another, something came up in Senate this morning, and yes, sometimes they have good ideas too. And it was something that actually had come up multiple times when we were out and about. why do you not have a program where you can get a law degree out in the rural areas? Why do you have to come? You know, we have two great law schools. They're 20 miles apart. It's Lawrence or it's Topeka. If you're in Elkhart or if you're in Pittsburgh or if you're in Atchison, I mean, that's a long way, and probably we lose some really good people. Now, just in Dodge City, for instance, okay, we are in partnership with KU, we're in partnership with K-State, we're in partnership with Hayes. We're providing master's degrees. We're making social workers. We've got physician assistant programs, and we're not alone. I mean, this is all over the state. Is there not some way that we could encourage people to go back to school without having to actually physically go back? That's something, I mean, obviously that's not anything we have control over, but it's something that's on our radar, something that we're looking at, because as I look, you know, I know for sure that there are legal assistants that have gone through my office that would have made unbelievable attorneys. They had never even thought about it until they got in there and were 2 or 3 years in, but they had kids, they had other reasons that they couldn't do it. Run into people in the sheriff's office, in the probation office, court services, people that caught fire, but they're in the middle of raising a family and that kind of thing. So, I mean, that would be something good to look at as well. So again, let's throw the past out. Past is gone. Let's look at what we have now and try to make the most of it.
Second question, please.
Okay.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead, quickly.
Part of why I ask is proposal to repay up to $20,000 a year for law school education. That doesn't make slots available in the law school. And for example, the medical profession, for right or wrong, has opened a new medical school in downtown Wichita. They're about to graduate nearly 400 new primary care emphasis physicians. But if we don't have slots for people, whether it's on a remote basis back and forth, or whether it's in-person training, or whatever we do without slots available at the law school, how are we going to fix the problem?
Well, you're right. And there's no one answer.
And I'm not blaming you or the
No,
chief
I
or even the dean, but
I understand
it's
that.
an ongoing problem.
No, it is. It's an ongoing problem, not only with lawyers. You know, it's an ongoing problem, period. The same thing's true in the medical profession. So it's artificially difficult to get in my opinion. And one thing I would add, I don't know if you're aware, but Benedictine's about to start a med school up there in Atchison as well. They're well on their way. Where are we, where are we in this process? So this is a good discussion to begin. You can't solve all problems all at once, but you bring up a good point.
That's a good question.
Other questions?
There's one, Representative Bohai.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Thank you so much for coming today. If memory serves, we did hear about rural issues last year also. Have we been able to recruit anyone in the past 360 odd days?
Oh, yes.
Okay, so how many, like, do we have any quantifiable numbers of?
I do not have at hand, but what we're finding is recruiting is easier than retention. We've been able to recruit and fill slots primarily in, the prosecution positions because people don't mind coming out maybe for a couple of years and prosecuting and going on to, a bigger office. We are in the process, really just at the beginning of trying to recruit together. Now, this program at Washburn where they placed 30-some, I think last year it was 28 students were placed in rural offices. It was due to the Patterson grant, which is $1 million a year. I mean, that's quite it hasn't shown the fruit yet, but I'm confident there'll be substantial recruitment results out of that. And just talking about it, just getting out and talking about it, I think it's helped with recruitment. I wish I had solid numbers for you, and at some point we will. But yes, I think we're having some success on that front.
Thank you.
Representative Williams.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for your testimony. I am new to Judiciary, even though I serve as Vice Chair, so some of these issues have been new to me, but I was able to visit Dodge City earlier, I guess last year, and was able to meet with Paige Harding. She's an attorney now in Dodge City. She's a young 20-something-year-old, but it was encouraging to see, hearing about these issues and then seeing young people go out back into these communities that they grew up in and now are serving their communities in an attorney capacity. So I just
That's
wanted to
great. I
kind of.
didn't realize you were working. I heard you were partying at the rodeo.
Dodge City has a lot to offer, but it was pretty cool to see. We see the problems, but it's fun to see. There's glimmers of hope and stories that are happening throughout the state of Kansas. So I just wanted to share that. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for coming out. You mentioned Paige. That's a good example. Paige Harding grew up in Dodge City, could have gone anywhere, no doubt about it. She has a love for agriculture and came back. And what she's good at is bringing her friends, groups of friends back, and talking up the community. That's kind of what it takes.
Any other questions from the committee? Representative Lewis.
Thank you very much for coming out, and I guess I just reiterate a lot of the things that you said are absolutely true about Garden City. We have a dearth of attorneys there. We have unbelievable opportunities for them. Like you said, people that don't live there and aren't part of the communities don't understand how sophisticated some of those farm operations are. And what's happening what I'm observing, and you kind of alluded to this, is that they're not finding the lawyers in Garden City or Dodge City or Scott City or Leota, and they're using lawyers in Wichita or Kansas City or Denver. And that's fine, but I also know from talking with them that they would prefer to be using, a lawyer locally. And so it is an amazing opportunity, like you said, for young lawyers that want to come back and serve their communities. I agree on that.
I appreciate you bringing that up. One of the things I do personal injury now, and glad that I do, but the first 20 years of my practice, I did everything. And, working with, people that maybe had an extremely large operation, they wanted you to help their employee, they wanted you to help their cousin, they had all kinds of issues. You had to cover everything. And being there at the feed yard at 6 in the morning to get cussed out, that was part of it that you don't get when you're dealing with people hundreds of miles away.
And the second thing I would say is this goes to the geographic issue that you were speaking about. Our economic development people of Finney County have done research into this and looked into so Garden City, Liberal, Dodge City have some of the lowest percentage of per capita of people with 4-year degrees. And so the question is, why is that? Well, it's not because we don't need them, right? We do need them. Absolutely, we need them. And it's not because they aren't smart enough or they don't have the desire. But what they found was that, especially for the Hispanic population, because of their culture, et cetera, when they think about going 100 miles to Hayes from Garden City for a 4-year degree, that's just not that's the problem. It's a geography issue that they want to be educated at home and stay at home for their education. And so the whole idea of, like you said, Representative Carmichael was mentioning the medical school in Wichita, but I do think that we need to think about providing some sort of opportunity for legal education out in the western part of the state.
Okay, committee, any other questions? I just have a couple things. What you mentioned, that a young attorney that goes out to the rural area, they get to do so many different kinds of law. They can learn so much, and it's so interesting. And Dodge City has a very warm place in my heart. We lived there the summer of 1981 when my husband was working for MBPXL, which you probably remember that. And then we got transferred to Wichita. But just love Dodge City, and it's never too late to go to law school. I will just say that. So what you were mentioning, people might want to go back, or even partners, you know, spouses, whatever. So I'm just curious about online education. I know Washburn, the last year you're able to do, you know, your last year online. Is there talk about that as far as rural opportunities, you know, for even people, maybe your college graduates, but then others that might have a degree, but they want to go back to law school later? Have y'all, is that a discussion that you've had?
It's certainly in the discussion phase. We're not the decision makers on that, but, and it's worthy, very, very, very worthy of discussion. Again, the point I would make is if you can get a nursing degree from KU at Dodge City, you have to do the clinical and so on. Why not? What is the barrier there that would say that you couldn't do that? Yeah. I'll give you my MBPXL story though.
Okay.
It's not quite as romantic as yours.
It was great. Wonderful summer.
I found out what MBPXL was in 1978 when I was scooping concrete out of the back of a concrete truck, pouring the driveway up to MBPXL. But you bring up a good point. That was 1980, so I mean, we're kind of dating ourselves.
Oh, I do all the time, yeah.
But
yeah.
Think back. There was a small packing plant, you know, at the time it was privately owned, now it's National Beef. And of course, MBPXL has become Cargill, okay? These are two of the largest plants in the world. They've literally saved Dodge City, okay? Now, you can argue about problems and challenges and all that, and there certainly has been some of that. But without MBPXL, without that, we would have never had the dairies. Without the dairies, we would have never gotten the cheese plant. These things build on each other. You have to move forward. And as we're, you know, what we're addressing here really is the need to recruit professionals in our small towns. I could easily talk about teachers, nurses, doctors, all of it. We need all of it. There's no doubt. We cannot let this get away from us. We really can't. Because clear across the state, these opportunities are right in front of us if we're willing to take advantage of them.
Okay, thanks. Last question. Do you have a go-to comfort food when you're stressed?
Just one.
We all had to answer that question yesterday, so.
Oh, you did?
You're the last question, yes.
Nothing will give you more I'll give you a little bit of a longer answer.
Yes, of course.
Okay.
Yes.
On this economic development theme, okay, I had a friend who spent 30 years in the packing plant. He goes, "Hey man, I'm going to start a food truck." Okay. Where do you think I ought to go? And I said, I know exactly where you ought to go. You need to go in the old Knights of Columbus parking lot, which is approximately 200 yards from my office. He goes, I'm going to sell tacos, yes, but I'm going to mainly make baked potatoes, what they call flaming something, okay? So it's a baked potato with salsa, with chicken, all that, okay? He called me up and he said, give me your cell. You order baked potato, I will deliver it to your door. Okay, now this is way too convenient, Chair Humphreys. So now it's not just my favorite comfort food, my legal assistant, partner. But again, what it shows you is entrepreneurial spirit. It's obvious he's going to be a big success. He can't help but, you know, because that's what he's willing to do.
Good story. Yep. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming. We appreciate
Thank you.
it.
Thanks again,
Thank you
everyone.
to all of you.
I would just speak for the group when I say we are available. Don't let the discussion end here. Feel free to call. We're available anytime. Look forward to seeing you in Dodge City. And thank you for your service.
Okay, thank you. Okay, yes, we appreciate all those visitors coming today. Committee, just a last housekeeping thing. Tomorrow we'll do requests for bill introductions, and we are going to work the bill that we heard yesterday. We're going to work it tomorrow. So you all know that, be prepared. And I also want you to know that I'm going to have some guidelines on our discussion about the bill tomorrow when we discuss the bill. I want everyone to have an opportunity to speak if they would like to, but at some point I will whatever you want to call it, call the question, whatever it is. We're not going to go on and on about it because that's my prerogative. So, because I actually think most people on the committee, and I've told most people, pretty much know how they're going to vote. So we want to be able to have a discussion. We want to hear what people are thinking, but we're not going to belabor the point, just so you know about that.
Madam Chair,
Okay.
if the members have already made up their minds, why do we even bother to have a meeting? Let's just go ahead and vote and be done with it right now and go home.
Because I said we're not going to do it today.
I thought
We're
that.
going to do it
That's true.
tomorrow.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, we're going to do
I'm sorry that you're going to limit debate. Thank you.
Okay, does anyone else have anything for the good of the committee? Okay, then we're adjourned. See you all tomorrow.